Hey there guys, and welcome to Tech Engineered. Now this video is going to be pretty late, but we're going to be talking about x299, the new enthusiast platform from Intel. It was released quite a while ago, but I still want to talk about it because I think this is kind of an important thing to talk about, especially on Tech Engineered, because I'm a computer engineering student. I enjoy like computer design and stuff like that, and this is really kind of like up my alley, and I think it's an important topic to talk about because there are some weird things about it that need to be described, and I think that I have some thoughts on it that I need to share with the technology community. So let's get started. So I'm going to try and keep this video from getting too technical, and we're going to talk about mainly the major points of this and like concerns for the consumer. So basically, to start off, let's introduce the x299 platform. So basically, this new platform is going to be a new chipset on the motherboard with a new socket that has more pins. And the processors that are going to go in the socket are going to be the SkyLake-X and the Lake-X processors. We're going to talk about those processors a little bit more later on in this video. So let's talk about like one of the major differences about this platform from X99, which is going to be the RAID on CPU feature. So we're going to have virtual RAID through the CPU, which is going to be pretty great. RAID 0 will be free, but you will have to buy a RAID key for 1 and 5. And this is mainly for NVMe SSDs. For other RAIDs, you're probably going to do that through the operating system or something else, but NVMe SSDs are affected by this. Now, these RAID chips are going to cost like $100 and $200 supposedly at this point. Maybe by the time that I edit this video and get it up, they'll have that like fully released, but right now it's going to be, from the leaks and stuff, it's going to be 100 for the RAID 1 chip and 200 for the RAID 5 chip. So these are basically just little things you plug into the motherboard to unlock this feature. Now that sounds pretty crazy because you're like, why can't we just do this? And the main reason why they want to do that is, one, because they want the money, and two, because they want to protect their server hardware. Server hardware can generally do this just by default because that's something you do in servers, is raiding things because you need lots of drives together. So they want to protect server hardware and like kind of make their server hardware viable, because people that might be building a workstation and they need this type of RAID, they'll probably go out and get like a server board. But if they put this feature on the enthusiast platform, they might go and get an enthusiast board for cheaper. So they're trying to make it to where people still buy the more expensive server boards to put in their workstations, because it's going to be just as expensive to get an enthusiast board because they have to buy a RAID key with it. Now that could be up to $200 to unlock the new RAIDs. But virtual RAID on CPU is a very good thing because it'll be a very fast RAID because you're going directly through the CPU. You're not RAIDing things in the operating system or anything like that. It'll be very fast and very effective, and I think it is a great feature. I do not think they should have the RAID keys though, because I feel like that is really kind of locking down the boards, and it's going to make people angry because people want to see these types of features put on the enthusiast platform, because the enthusiast platform is supposed to be the pinnacle of technology. Server will have enthusiast platform type stuff on it, but it's going to be more refined and made to be more stable. So the enthusiast platform is supposed to be pushing the cutting edge of technology, and we shouldn't be penalizing people for wanting to use the cutting edge of technology by making them buy little keys that unlock features that are already on the board, but just locked. And this technology will only be enabled on SkyLake-X processors and not Lake-X processors, so you'll have to get the SkyLake-X. So let's start talking about SkyLake-X. SkyLake-X is going to be kind of the new enthusiast platform of processors, replacing Broadwell E, and SkyLake-X is going to be all of your like big processors, your 6 cores up through, they're going to have an 18-core 36-thread processor that is on this platform. And these are going to be X-Series processors. So X-Series is no longer like extreme. X-Series is going to be also enthusiast. And these processors are pretty crazy because they range from i7s all the way up to i9s. So they're adding another SKU of processors beyond i7, the i9s, which are going to be your crazy like 10 cores and on up. So they're no longer going to have like the Extreme Edition, it's just going to be an i9, and they're also extending beyond that, mainly because of AMD Threadripper coming out, and they want to compete with Threadripper, so that's why they're extending out the top of that like SKU. But still, I digress. They'll have i7s and i9s on the SkyLake-X platform. These processors will have 1 megabyte of cache, which is like unheard of on an enthusiast processor. You can find that maybe on some Xeons that have really large amounts of cores, but for these processors, they have a lot of cache for not so many cores, so that'll be really handy when you have cache-intensive things happening. The processors will be able to have more information at their fingertips to collect it. And this is good for like overclocking, because if you overclock the processor, it can do more things, so it might need more information at its hands. So we're seeing a major increase in cache this generation, which will be very good for improving processor performance. Last generation Broadwell E only had 256 kilobytes of cache, so they are quadrupling the amount of cache that they are putting on these processors. And pricing for these processors is looking pretty standard to what last gen was, maybe like $10 cheaper, but not a whole lot. So we're going to see a lot of competition from AMD in this regard, because they are releasing processors that have a lot more cores and threads than these processors at lower price points. So we're going to have to see how all that pans out, but currently the prices are looking to be roughly the same for these same like equal processors of last gen. So for a 6-core 12-thread processor, you're going to be paying around $400. On up to the 18-core 36-thread processor, which will be $2,000. Now, this processor was kind of a spur-of-the-moment release that they were going to be making this to mainly combat the AMD Threadripper processors. The Threadripper processors are going to be 16-core 32-thread processors, and it's looking, based on current speculations, that they're going to be around $1,000, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but that's roughly where they're going to be. They haven't confirmed the pricing on that, so asterisk by it. I'm probably wrong, but that's where it's going to end up. So this processor that Intel has released to combat that has 2 more cores and 4 more threads, but it's not like the same price range, because you're paying $1,000 more for that. We're gonna have to see how the performance turns out. One might be a lot faster than the other, or overclock better than the other, but still, I feel like $1,000 for a couple extra cores and a couple extra threads is not worth it. I feel like this wasn't an adequate response to Threadripper. I feel like Intel really needs to work on cutting down their pricing to compete with AMD, because AMD Ryzen processors are performing very well now that they have optimized the processors and gotten some of the BIOS tweaks out of the way and fixed some bugs. The AMD Ryzen processors are looking very good. So Threadripper is based on Ryzen, so it's likely to be pretty good also. Now let's move on to SkyLake-X. Now SkyLake-X, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to be really biased on, because I do not like this at all. I think it's an awful idea. But basically what SkyLake-X is going to be, they're going to take a regular SkyLake processor and then stick it onto a PCB that can fit into an x299 board. And then they're going to disable the integrated graphics on the processor and allow for more voltage and frequency regulation based off of having more pins. You basically don't get much more performance over just a standard SkyLake processor, because it's not like a revision of the processor like SkyLake-X is. SkyLake-X has more cores, more cache, just like a normal enthusiast processor will have, but SkyLake-X really isn't an enthusiast processor. Yeah, it'll overclock better, and you don't get integrated graphics, which will lower your thermals if you're using the integrated graphics, which you're not going to be. So you'll get lower thermals on them from having less integrated graphics, and probably better like voltage stability, not having the integrated graphics enabled on it. But still, they're going to be like roughly the same price. They're going to be a bit more expensive than the original SkyLake processors, and you're going to be putting them into a board where they don't even have the PCI Express lanes to enable all the features on this board, because they're limited. They're just a consumer level chip. So you can't utilize all the features on the board if you choose to go with this chip. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I guess kind of like where they're coming from is people can buy these processors because they're going to be cheaper than a lot of the like SkyLake-X processors and stuff. And you can like upgrade to a SkyLake-X later. But people don't really do that on the enthusiast platform. People just kind of like, they're like, this is my budget, so I'm going to buy the greatest thing that I can. I'm not going to upgrade it later, because it's going to be enthusiast. It's going to be crazy. We're talking about the top level of tech, and a lot of these builds actually don't really have a budget, so they're going to be getting the top of the line processor anyway, the 18 core. So why are we like building budget options on the enthusiast platform that like don't even enable all of the features? All the processors should enable all the features so that you can have a full like experience on the platform, even if you do have a budget. Like my computer is an enthusiast platform computer on a budget, but I'm still enthusiast platform, so I can get great performance, great overclocking and stuff like that, tons of RAM. But you can't do that with the SkyLake-X processors. They're only going to have 2 RAM channels, whereas SkyLake-X will have 4, just like any other enthusiast processor. So you're going to have RAM slots that like aren't going to work possibly, or they might work, but you're just going to have 4 RAM slots in one channel, 4 in the other. I doubt that's how they're going to do it. I really think it's just going to disable 4 of the slots on an 8-slot board, but still, the processor just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You could buy boards that'll like be limited down to what the SkyLake-X can do, but it's the enthusiast platform. That's not the like spirit of it. The spirit of it is to go crazy, to build machines that can do crazy things and work really well. So I feel like the SkyLake-X processors kind of go against that, and they're kind of a bad idea. I don't really see a lot of people buying them because if they're going enthusiast, they're going to go with the quad channel memory, they're going to go with all the higher level stuff, and the consumers are still going to buy the consumer stuff. So that kind of leaves the SkyLake-X processors in this no man's land where nobody is going to be buying them. That's my prediction. Take it with a grain of salt. It could be different. These could be the next new popular processor and everybody's going to go crazy for them. I mean, they are overclocking very well. Some extreme overclocking with liquid nitrogen have gotten them up to like 7.5 gigahertz, which is insane. I don't think any processor's ever been like ramped up to that high, like actual like production processor, not just like a lab processor. So that's going to be pretty cool. That means that consumers on air and water cooling will be able to get up really high, since the enthusiast overclockers have gotten up that high. Or not enthusiast overclockers, the extreme overclockers, they're above the enthusiast because they modify things, rewire things, and do stuff like that. But that'll be pretty cool, I guess, having really good overclocking on a processor that's like not really worth it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I didn't cover everything about x299. I just want to cover the main points and kind of like leave things as untechnical as I could so that consumers can understand what's going on here, because, you know, the enthusiast platform can be kind of crazy whenever you're trying to get into it for the first time, and I feel like Intel has made it even crazier with x299. So hopefully this video has helped you understand some of the stuff that's happening, some of the changes that are happening, and I really encourage you to go look at other YouTube videos that might be a little bit more thorough than this one, but I just want to cover main points and kind of give my own input on this situation. So if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave a like on it. If you like the content on this channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have advice for future content that I can make, leave that in the comment section below. And I will see you guys in the next video.